What's up, Illumineers? We are bringing you coverage of a core constructed Winnabox tournament from Atlas Games in Ankeny, Iowa, brought to you by Lorcana Cabana. And you are going to see round one, and those cards right there are not going to be in the decks that you see.
No, those were some rock, paper, scissors cards used to determine who goes first.
Yeah, that is a really fun way. We see high roll, odd, even all the time. Sometimes we see poker hand, but rock, paper, scissors with some Lorcana cards is a really cool way of determining who will go first as well. So in this first round, you'll see Max on the left and Jason on the right side. And I do think that the color combinations that you see in the top corners are swapped. I believe Max is on Emerald Amethyst and Jason on Amber Emerald.
Yes, that's correct. And I think actually the videos will be swapped at some point, kind of as this round gets started. So the Emerald Amber will be on the left side, and the Emerald Amethyst will be on the right side.
All right, so the players are shuffling their hands now. Of course, Dog's probably the most talked about deck in Core Constructed over the last month or so, ever since it won the DLC in Ghent. And people have just been fearing the Dog. So they've been teching their Core Constructed decks to beat Dogs, to deal with this super powerful Grandmother Willow into a Big Boy Tramp, and then eventually what the Dogs player hopes to be Under the Sea. So Max, tell us, as an Emerald Amethyst player, what is your strategy against this really powerful deck?
Yeah, so um, really my goal kind of with this deck and utilizing it was you've got a decent amount of bodies that are able to challenge fairly early. Um, I'm running the 2-drop mini mouse here. That's the 3/3, along with Cheshire Cat, and then also along with Louie, to be able to just force them kind of into your challenges. Pairing those bodies along with eventually being able to top end into a Demona, to just kind of clean up some of those boards. But really, those 2 drops and those 3 drops are really kind of the important ones here, along with kind of the Palace Guard for an opener. So, or the Royal Guard, sorry, not the Palace Guard.
Yeah, Royal Guard that can instantly every turn hit for 2 strength because it gains 1 strength each time you draw a card.
Yeah, I mean, and notably, I'm running 4 of the Strike a Good Match in this deck, so the ability to draw quite a few cards in your turn is there's a lot of cards that will draw you 2 cards during your turn in this deck.
Yeah. So we see Jason in round, rather turn one, play the Bobby Zemersky, which allows you to draw a card and then discard a card, and discarding the Lilo immediately, which is a card that he will eventually try to bring back from his discard and play onto the field
Yeah,
later in this game.
probably the best card that he could have to be able to discard to the Bobby.
Yeah, and we see Max there. You open with the Royal Guard as you want to get started. So that essentially for Jason means no free quest with this Bobby. Otherwise, that Bobby will go right into the discard with Lilo.
Yeah, and really that's kind of the game plan that I'm trying to implement is just get bodies on the board that make questing difficult. The longer the game goes on, the more it will favor kind of the higher end control deck that I'm running.
Yeah, and of course we know the way that Dogs is played. We can't really afford to.
Oh,
Okay, so we have a Mowgli come down, and looks like Max, you'll get your choice there
yeah, quite a few
of
options. And
actions.
somewhat interestingly, it looks like Jason had the Grandmother Willow in his hand, so opting to kind of go for this Mowgli line instead, uh, of inking the Mowgli, getting that Willow down, and getting the additional 1 drop down of the um, Rhino that he put in his inkwell.
Yeah. Um, as I was going to say, for the Dogs player, they can't really afford to, lose any bodies in this early game if they, make a mistake in quest and take an unfavorable trade, because that's what'll allow them to play this big tramp later on for a much lower cost. And I think that's one of the hardest parts, in my view, of playing dogs is being patient, because you tell yourself, I have the ability to quest and go wide pretty fast, but you really need to be patient so that you can get your tramp down and start drawing cards.
Yeah, and we see they're just inking the pull lever, getting this mini down on the field. We've still got a genie and a woodchuck guide in our hands for draw, so just kind of favoring getting these bodies on the field.
So we see Jason play the Grandmother Willow and then the Bobby Zemersky for free.
And he looks like he discarded a 2-drop tramp there to his Bobby. Um, okay, he does have a Lady Decisive Dog there in his hand, likely looking to set up this shift line.
Yeah, the shift line, Lady Miss Park Avenue, will allow Jason to bring up to two of his smaller characters back from the discard into his hand.
Yeah, and here,
And also can
uh,
sing the End of the Sea eventually.
yeah, and I think I'm kind of looking here. It's been a little while since this tournament, but looking at what I've got there in my hand, my thought here is that I play this Mother Knows Best on this Grandmother Willow, just to really stall out any sort of kind of momentum that Jason is looking to play here. One option would be to play that Hey Hey to sing it next turn, but I think just breaking that momentum now is the line that right now I'm kind of thinking that I would probably go for, but it could be this Woodchuck Guide.
Talk to us about the Hey Hey there. That's a card that people might not see as much running around.
Yeah, the idea there is, I mean, this is still just a deck that wants to get to that Prince Philip, and so against these blue decks that are trying to ramp, having just a 3-drop that you can use to get the ramp up there, um, is just another way to kind of like squeak out some of those advantages, as well as, I mean, a 2/3 body that can quest for 2, um, isn't too bad. And it doesn't look
So we
like.
see you.
Yep,
Yeah, go ahead.
went for the Palace Guard and the Woodchuck Guide. um, Still a way to kind of just like put bodies on this field, threaten those or those Royal Guards, really hitting for quite a bit, with this potential of drawing 3 cards on my next turn, and really just disincentivizing the quest. Uh,
So Jason gets to play the lady for free because of Grandmother Willow, but it looks like a trio of uninkables in his hand that is making it really difficult for him to do anything else right now.
it looks like we drew a Cheshire Cat for the turn there. I'm guessing getting that down is probably the play that I go for here. Somewhat interesting
What's
here, inking this Hades, because I will be going to 5 ink on this next turn, so that Hades could have come down and play. But typically against these dogs players, that Hades is only ever going to draw you cards. It's never going to really remove anything. So really just kind of prioritizing the ability to remove characters off of the field here.
So we do see Jason pick up those 2 cards from the discard, and interestingly enough, I think what's relevant about bringing that Lilo back is he needs something to ink at this point.
Yeah.
Dogs can thrive on lower ink, but typically you do need at least 3, maybe 4 sometimes to really get everything going. And what I notice is that you've got that Timona in your hand, and if we don't see a lot from Jason in terms of drawing cards here, um, Oh, I was gonna say it could be pretty rough with
Yeah,
your.
it looks like we might see the Under the Sea come out here
That's yeah.
for Jason. But notably, I mean, the Minnie Mouse and the Cheshire Cat get to stay, and that means that like some of these trades can start to become a little bit favorable in just being able to take out some of these characters.
Yeah, you even, next turn have enough ink to do some challenging and moving some damage. There's a lot of options there. Interesting that Jason still, with a couple inkables in hand, chooses not to ink there.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the argument. I mean, the dog deck I don't think really needs to get much above 3. Ooh, looks like we're getting some of the cameras in frame there.
There we
The
go.
dog stick doesn't really need to go above 3, so I mean he can always ink on his next turn if he'd like to. But these might be cards that he's trying to keep as much as he can, and so if he draws a different inkable, he can kind of leverage that instead. So
Sure.
I think it makes sense to kind of hold those there, at least until you kind of need that ink.
So we see the mother knows best to return that lady to Jason's hand.
Yep, and the hand currently is a pull lever with a Demona, and that Demona should be able to come down next turn. Um, and then likely be able to just choose the targets of which things we want to be able to remove. And if that lady comes back down, that could be an issue, but right now Jason would only get back a Mowgli, so that might not be the line that we see him go for here.
So we do see another Bobby. Maybe we put the Lilo back into the discard.
Definitely an option. That Lilo having the ability to kind of always come back out of the discard when you need it to really makes it just a great target for these draw discard effects.
So it looks like we probably play that tramp and boost one of our Bobbies to trade with your cat. That's a really, um, pretty solid play that Dogs likes to do is boost up, a Bobby or a baby Rhino or something like that to remove some of your bigger threats.
Yeah, and here right now, I think this Demona is probably coming down, and my guess is the Willow and this lady are probably the targets that end up getting taken out.
Yeah, it makes sense. Want to prevent any future shift of the lady if we can.
Yeah, we know that there's at least one in hand. I don't think we know about the second one, but one of them got put back with the Mother Knows Best.
And of course, if there is no shift target, Lady does cost 5 ink, and now without a Grandmother Willow, we are still a couple turns away from that. So it's really all about can we
Yeah,
find another shift target?
and now we're sitting here where it looks like Jason didn't draw another inkable card. So choosing not to ink on those former turns. Oh, I guess we do have an inkable card, but
Not the one we want to ink.
yeah, likely not the one that he's really hoping for. So choosing not to ink on some of those former turns looks like it has kind of come back to be a bit of an issue.
So Jason plays the Emerald Chromacon, and I'm curious to see what you wind up doing here. Certainly, you're going to go questing this turn because he didn't turn anything sideways. But you know, you have enough lore on board that do we need to worry too much about these three lore on Jason's side?
We see that Louis come down, forcing the tramp to attack um, into us or into my characters kind of over there is what. Notably, that Emerald Chromacon only works when on your opponent's turn. So if you're forced to a challenge into your opponent, those characters aren't going. You're not going to get those Emerald Chromacon triggers.
Yeah, this is already a pretty tough spot for Jason. Yeah.
Yep. Looks like
Just
he
says,
he agreed.
okay, there's not going to be anything that I can do there. I was like trying to do the math about, okay, maybe with a correct series of draws, you can lower a couple cards and eventually, pull off another Under the Sea, but that would just be a lot of luck and very few ways to ink still.
Yeah, a fairly quick game there, but the writing was likely on the wall there. I think I've got a board that's questing for 8 or 9 on that next turn, and without the ability to kind of establish a bit of more of a presence there and kind of fight the board a little bit more, uh, Jason kind of just deciding that that it really isn't a good way to claw that back.
Yeah, so we will see Jason on the play here, and hopefully, for his sake, he gets a little bit of a stronger hand initially. He had that great opening start with the Bobby and discarding the Lilo, but it didn't really look to be super favorable after that. And I am even curious about was the decision to play Mowgli instead of Grandmother Willow on turn two relevant later in the game?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely interesting. Believe he got rid of one of my Mother Knows Bests there, so certainly a card that could have given him trouble. But yeah, definitely wondering like if you had gotten some of those other things going a little bit quicker, maybe there would have been some other lines that he could have taken. But hard to say, and certainly in the moments, these decisions are really difficult to make.
Absolutely.
It's one of the things that I think makes this dog's deck quite difficult to pilot skillfully. It's a deck that kind of on its surface seems maybe a little bit straightforward and linear, but really all of these draw discards and different types of effects have a lot of micro decisions that end up kind of being very impactful throughout these games.
Yeah, it's definitely, and especially if you don't get that perfect curve into the big tramp, it really can be kind of difficult to navigate early on, especially when you are up against a deck like yours, where, you know, the opponent is playing characters that can remove all of mine pretty easily.
Yeah, and it looks like we will be able to see from Jason here kind of the ideal opening. It looks like we're gonna have one drop into Grandmother Willow into one drop into Tramp, which is an incredibly powerful opener, um, and probably the main thing that Jason is hoping to be able to see, especially now that he's on the play for this game.
Yeah, this will allow him to turbo out some characters super fast. We have seen folks in the Lorcana community over the last month or so call for bans when it comes to this dog stack. And I don't know that it's ever really gotten any traction, but a lot of people have been very frustrated by this deck. And I think just seeing how difficult it can be to pilot, to me signals that like it's not something that needs to be banned. It's just something that, you should be able to expect what they're going to do and figure out how am I going to answer this very quick board that's going to come down.
Yeah, I certainly don't know that. I don't think that Tramp is ban worthy. I do think that Demona should be banned, but um, I'm also playing Demona, so
I mean, I think it is fair to recognize that, if you play a card that is a little bit broken, you can still say it's broken. I mean, I have been a very frequent Dumbo player, and I don't know if I would say it's broken, but Dumbo is incredibly
yeah.
powerful.
I would actually say if you think a card is broken and ban worthy, you should go play with it. You should try to
Yeah,
play with the most powerful decks that you can put together, and if you find that you aren't winning as many games as you thought you might, that card might not be as broken as you thought it was.
yeah. And that was, kind of what people would always say about things like Shift Diablo, right? In a green steel deck, there were many answers to a Diablo. So although it could be a very strong card, it wasn't certainly without its answers. So we have a player here who you saw maybe if you watched our Infinity tournament, Sean, who says if it dies to fire the cannons, it's not broken.
But we do see this Tramp coming through. I don't know if we'll be able to catch all of the cards that are making it to the discard here, but we've got an Under the Sea, a Rhino, and a Mowgli. Um, we might not get the full updated hand right away, but hopefully we'll get it here pretty soon to see what was kept. I suspect there's another Under the Sea in the hand, but maybe opting for. It looks like he opted for this Mowgli and this Nani instead. Um, which I think is probably wise. This Emerald Amethyst deck really runs a lot of cards that sit at 3 power. Um, and so that Under the Sea might not be as impactful as it could be in some of the other matchups.
Sure. Nani is another card that we have seen played in, dogs. We've seen it really take off in an Amber Steel Song deck. It is just some really powerful Amber cards that came with Winterspell that we've seen played, like the Grandmother Willow, like the Nani.
Both, I think, uncommon.
Yes, I have always held this opinion that some of the best cards in the game are commons and uncommons. We certainly talk about every set that there are a number of legendaries and super rares that are frankly useless, but we think about some of the commons that we've had over the years that have been very, very powerful.
And Mowgli coming down there and Jason getting to see that the combo is potentially online here. As soon as turn 6 hits the or as soon as the sixth ink hits the table.
Yeah.
So that's certainly something that Jason's going to now have to kind of be thinking about and thinking about ways to play around for the most part for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it almost feels like we play this Nani eventually and go find an Ursula or another Mowgli to potentially deal with your malicious, mean, and scaries that are in the hand.
Yep, and it looks like Jason here is just deciding if the game goes long enough, then that combo is certainly going to come down and ruin this board. So might as well get this lore in while we can.
Yeah, get as much as he possibly can before you inevitably are able to do that in a few turns. And we will get the lore counter updated there. It looks like questing the Grandmother Willows. So Jason questing for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe, this turn.
Yeah, and
The
it's not like he said he had gone to 9, so um, likely getting it updated there right now.
Oh yes, going to 9 because we played the tramp and we're able to boost this 1 drop lady even further.
Yeah, I suspect that the play here is to kind of really just find some space to get this Philip on the board, um, and just kind of stall time until that happens. So I suspect that we see these ladies end up in the discard here after this turn, and then kind of just establishing a board that is able to set up that combo.
Yeah, you are going to 4 ink here. The 9-drop Prince Philip is a shift
Oh.
6. So
Opting to take out the big tramp instead. Interesting. I wonder if I'm going to go for a boost here. But yeah, looks like we are.
Jason finding another 2-drop tramp that he can play to boost up something and potentially remove your cat.
I suspect that we see that come through.
Yeah, notably he can pay that or play that for 1 ink because of the lady that's in play.
But he kind of has to choose here. Is he attacking or is he questing? Looks like we are going to attack and get this cat out of the way, which I think is probably the correct play. Um, that cat being able to shift those damage counters around is really going to be uh, just an incredibly efficient way to remove some of these characters.
It looks like Jason trades with your Minnie Mouse there, and then we quest for 2 more.
And yeah, just getting that Philip on the board, um, throwing it over to Jason and saying, "Hey, if you can't rip out these 2 malicious, mean, and scary from my hand, this combo's probably happening next turn."
Yeah, and it looks like Jason drew Adela's Moon Lullaby because the Nani and the Tramp were played last turn. Not the worst. He could go digging one more card to see if he can find an Ursula or a Mowgli. But you have 2 in hand, so even that, doesn't really
Yeah,
feel that
there would
great.
need to be 2 of them. So notably, I opted to put the Woodchuck Guide in the discard of the first Mowgli, just to try to pad and protect against Mowgli coming down an additional time.
So we do boost up the lady to get that extra value, but Jason knows what's coming here.
But opting to ink the second Malicious there, it is a card that Jason knew about, so a little bit difficult to try to play around. And then opting to keep this cat. But Jason is at 16, so we are in a position where uh, pretty much anything that Jason is able to have stick on the field and be able to quest the additional turn is going to end up being a problem.
Yeah, and this is really tricky. He finds a Go-Go Tamago, so if you put damage on this Nani eventually.
Yeah, challenging into this Nani would now be risky. I mean, the Nani questing and challenging into it with the Prince Philip actually presents lethal over to Jason.
Nani cannot challenge into Prince Philip because he is evasive.
Yep. But can quest, and any damage left over on my characters
Is risky.
is risky now that I know that that go-go is in his hand. Notably, Jason only on one of these go-go's, but this is a time where it matters quite a bit.
So at this point, Jason choosing not to quest anymore, just seeing if he can hold his characters a little bit longer.
And I think that that makes sense. I mean, right now, because of that Cheshire Cat, I mean, really only one damage counter would stay on my characters. So the Nani questing there gets him one, but it lets it takes care of the Nani and the Lilo on his side, uh, and only gets him in one additional lore.
So it looks like you quest for 3 there with your Prince Philip, and
Just pass the turn with another big Prince Philip in our hand.
okay.
Which right now, we had inked our other malicious, mean, and scary in favor of this cat, which could end up being an issue. Because right now, I mean, if we can wipe the board again, that pretty much seals it.
So this is actually really okay. So at this point, yeah, you have to find. Oh, and it was it.
Yeah, looks like we drew the malicious, mean, and scary there. So singing it with the cat, shifting out, getting rid of the board again, and then we quest for 4.
And Jason saying, "Yep, after the third malicious, mean, and scary that you found in this game, I can do no more." And I think Jason said, something that I think we all have to remember a little bit is, you had no idea that you would top deck the malicious, mean, and scary.
No.
Sometimes it just
We did play
happens.
for it a little bit. Notably, that could have been inked on that previous turn, but I had opted to keep it on the chance that we drew that malicious, mean, and scary. The odds are obviously low, but giving ourselves that out is still definitely a way to kind of make sure that you have some of those outs that could exist, no matter the odds, right?
Absolutely.
You've got to play to whatever outs may still exist.
We see the whole crowd of players coming over to the table saying, "Did he really just top deck that malicious, mean, and scary right there?"
Yeah, better lucky than good.
That's
But
true. They always say the person who wins the tournament is the luckiest in the room, right?
but that was it for round 1 of the Atlas Winnabox tournament. We'll This is another tournament that I believe was a best of 4 with a cut to, or a best of 4 rounds of Swiss with a cut to the top 4. So we will have 3 more rounds of the Swiss rounds, and then the semifinals and the finals still to go.
We look forward to it.